You have been here before. Not this exact place, but this exact feeling. The moment between waking and sleep. The pause before you speak. The week after you quit your job. You are in the threshold. You are in the liminal space. Liminal. From the Latin limen, meaning threshold. A doorway that is neither inside nor outside. A moment that is neither departure nor arrival. A state of being that is neither who you were nor who you will become. Every culture in human history has recognized this space. And every culture has feared it.
The liminal space. Between worlds, between selves. The terrifying threshold where identity dissolves and something new has not yet formed. This is the psychology of in-betweenness.
To understand the liminal, we must go back to where it all began. To the rituals that every ancient civilization created not for entertainment, but for survival. Rituals designed to kill the old self so the new one could live.
Act 1. The threshold. How every ancient culture recognized the power of in-betweenness and built rituals around it.
Consider the Aboriginal walkabout. A young man is taken from his community and sent into the wilderness alone. For months, he walks. He has no name, no role, no identity. He is neither a boy nor a man. He is in between. And it is precisely this in-between state that transforms him. In ancient Greece, the Eleusinian Mysteries were the most sacred rituals in the Hellenic world. For 2,000 years, the mystery of what happened inside was never broken. Initiates emerged transformed, saying they no longer feared death. The secret was not a teaching. It was an experience of the threshold itself. Every initiation ritual shares the same structure. First, separation. The initiate is removed from ordinary life. Then, the liminal phase itself. Isolation, fasting, sensory deprivation, symbolic death. The old identity is deliberately dismantled. Only then can the new identity emerge. The liminal phase was always the most dangerous. In many cultures, initiates were literally said to be dead during this period. They had no legal status, no social identity, no name. They existed in a space outside the social order, a space of immense creative potential and immense vulnerability. Among the Ndembu people of Zambia, the liminal phase was called the state of being betwixt and between. The initiate wore special clothing that marked them as belonging to no category. They were outside the normal rules. This was not a flaw in the ritual. It was the point of the ritual. In Japan, the concept of ma captures something similar. Ma is the space between things, the pause between notes, the silence between words. Japanese culture recognized that the space between is not empty. It is full. It is where meaning actually resides. The threshold is not a gap. It is the most important part. After the liminal phase came reincorporation. The initiate returned to society, but transformed. They had a new name, new status, new responsibilities. The person who entered the threshold was not the person who emerged. This three-part structure, separation, liminality, reincorporation, appears in every culture on Earth. Separation, threshold, return. Death, limbo, rebirth. Ending, in between, beginning. This pattern is not a cultural invention. It is a psychological necessity. The human mind requires a period of dissolution before it can reorganize. Without the liminal phase, transformation is impossible. Among the Lakota, the vision quest was the ultimate liminal practice. A young person went alone to a mountaintop for days without food or water. In this state of extreme vulnerability, the boundaries between self and world dissolved. What came back was not the same person who left. The vision quest was not about receiving answers. It was about becoming a vessel for something larger than the self. Shamanic traditions across Siberia, the Amazon, and Africa describe a similar pattern. The shaman undergoes a death experience, often described as being dismembered and reassembled. This symbolic death is not metaphor. It is a psychological event so profound that the initiate's sense of self is permanently restructured. The old self dies so a self capable of moving between worlds can emerge. But here is what the ancients understood that we have forgotten. The liminal phase is not a problem to solve. It is the most creative, the most transformative state a human being can experience. It is where art is born, where wisdom is found, where the self becomes something it could never become through planning alone. Modern society has eliminated most formal liminal spaces. We have no initiation rites. No recognized periods of transition. We expect people to change without first dissolving. We expect growth without the darkness that makes growth possible. And so people find themselves in liminal states with no map, no guide, and no framework for understanding what they are experiencing. What the ancients understood, what Turner proved, what neuroscience confirms, is that the threshold is not empty space. It is the space where everything important happens. The discomfort is not a signal to flee. It is the teacher itself. Every great thinker, every artist, every person who changed the world, spent time on the threshold. Not despite the discomfort, but because of it.
Every ancient culture built spaces for the in-between. They understood that transformation requires a threshold, a moment of not being, a sacred emptiness. We lost these spaces. But the need for them did not disappear. It went underground. And in the modern world, it surfaces in unexpected places. Act 2. The Anthropologist. Victor Turner and the theory that named the invisible architecture of human transition.
Victor Turner was a British anthropologist who spent years living with the Ndembu people of Zambia. He was not the first to study liminality. That credit belongs to his mentor, Arnold van Gennep, who in 1909 first identified the 3 stages of rites of passage. But Turner made it his life's work. Van Gennep's framework was elegant. Every rite of passage has 3 phases: separation, where the individual is removed from their social position; margin or limen, the threshold state where the old identity has dissolved; and aggregation, where the person returns with a new status. Turner's genius was to see that the middle phase, the liminal, was the most important. Turner discovered something remarkable about the liminal state. People in it experience what he called Communitas. A deep, spontaneous bond between those who share the threshold. Stripped of their social roles, initiates meet each other as equals. Hierarchies dissolve. The experience is often described as the most profound human connection a person ever feels. Turner called the liminal state anti-structure. It exists in opposition to the normal social order. During liminality, the rules are suspended. The high become low. The low become high. The sacred becomes profane. This inversion is not chaos. It is a necessary dismantling that allows a new order to emerge. Turner described liminal entities as beings that are neither one thing nor another. They are ambiguous. They defy classification. In mythology, these are the tricksters, Hermes, Coyote, Loki. Figures who live in the threshold and use its power. Every culture has them because every culture recognizes the threshold as a real place with real power. The power of the liminal comes precisely from its ambiguity. In a world that demands certainty, categories, and labels, the liminal space refuses all of them. It is the zone where fixed identity becomes fluid. And that fluidity is terrifying. It is also the source of every major transformation in a human life. Turner also studied pilgrimage as a liminal phenomenon. The pilgrim leaves home, travels through sacred space, and returns changed. During the journey, normal social hierarchies dissolve. Kings walk beside peasants. The road itself becomes the threshold. Every step is a deliberate movement through the in-between. Turner later expanded his theory to include what he called liminoid phenomena. Experiences that resemble liminality but are voluntary rather than obligatory. Art, music, theater, sports, travel. These are the modern equivalents of initiation rites. When you attend a concert and lose yourself in the music, you enter a liminal state. The self dissolves momentarily into something collective and transcendent. Turner's key insight was this: liminality is not a gap in the process. It is the process. The threshold is not empty time to be rushed through. It is the most generative state a human being can occupy. Everything that matters, creativity, identity, connection, meaning, emerges from the in-between.
Victor Turner gave us the language to understand something we all experience but cannot name. The feeling of being between selves, between worlds, between chapters of your life. He showed that this feeling is not pathology. It is the deepest human potential. The question is whether we have the courage to stay in it. Act 3. The Unnamed States. Liminality in the lived experience of modern life.
Consider adolescence. The most universally recognized liminal state in modern life. You are no longer a child. You are not yet an adult. You belong to neither world. Every culture marks this transition, but modern society has made it longer and more ambiguous than any culture in history. Unemployment is a liminal state that no one chooses. Your identity was tied to your work. Without it, who are you? The days lose their structure. The weeks blur together. You're between roles, between purposes, between versions of yourself. The discomfort is not just financial. It is existential. Divorce is perhaps the most intense involuntary liminal experience. You were someone's partner. Now you are not. The social rituals of couplehood, the shared identity, the future you had planned, all dissolve. You are not who you were. You do not yet know who you will be. This space between marriages is one of the most creative and most terrifying periods in a human life. The immigrant lives in a permanent liminal state. You are between cultures, between languages, between the person you were in your homeland and the person you are becoming in a new land. You belong fully to neither place. This is not a temporary condition. For many immigrants, the threshold becomes a permanent residence. Grief is the liminal space of loss. You were someone's child, partner, friend. Now that person is gone, and the role they held in your identity has collapsed. You are between the past that included them and the future that will not. The grief itself is the threshold. And like all thresholds, it demands to be experienced fully, not rushed through. There are also microliminal states. The hour between midnight and dawn, when the world feels thin. The moment in a conversation before someone speaks. The instant before a decision is made. The pause between inhale and exhale. These are all thresholds, and they accumulate into the fabric of consciousness. Every creative person knows the liminal state. The period between starting a project and finishing it, when you don't know what you're making but you can't stop. The research phase, the exploration phase, the dark night of the creative soul. This discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is the zone where the best work happens. The common quality of all these states is discomfort. A feeling of not belonging to any recognized category. Society has no label for what you are. You are not a student, not a professional, not single, not married. You are in between. And this in-between is both terrifying and profoundly creative. Modern culture's obsession with productivity and certainty means we rush through liminal states. We fill the gap with distraction. We medicate the discomfort. We demand answers before the question has finished forming. In doing so, we lose the very states that make transformation possible. But those who learn to stay on the threshold discover something unexpected. The discomfort begins to shift. Clarity emerges not despite the ambiguity, but because of it. Ideas that were invisible in the structured world become visible in the liminal space. This is not mystical. It is neurological. Neuroscience confirms what the ancients knew. The brain's default mode network, which activates during unstructured time, is responsible for creativity, self-reflection, and future planning. When we fill every moment with stimulation, we suppress the very neural state that makes transformation possible. Retirement is a liminal state that catches people by surprise. For decades, your identity was defined by your profession. Now that structure is gone. The days stretch out without the framework that gave them meaning. Many retirees describe a period of profound disorientation that lasts months or years. They are not who they were. They have not yet become who they will be. Moving to a new city is a voluntary liminal state. You leave behind your routines, your social network, your mental map of the world. In the new city, you are a ghost. Nobody knows you. You can be anyone. This freedom is exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. The period of adjustment, of learning the new place, is a liminal phase that reshapes identity. Recovery from a serious illness is one of the most profound liminal experiences. Your body has betrayed you. The identity of health, of invulnerability, has been stripped away. You emerge from the illness a different person with different priorities, different relationships, and a different understanding of time. The person you were before the illness is gone. The new person is still forming.
The unnamed states of modern life, adolescence, unemployment, divorce, immigration, grief, creativity, are all liminal. They share the quality of betwixt and between. They are uncomfortable because they dissolve identity. But they are essential because identity cannot reform without first dissolving. The threshold is not the obstacle. It is the path. Act 4. The Permanent Threshold. How technology created a society of people who never fully arrive.
Technology has created a new form of liminality that the ancients could never have imagined. The state of being perpetually between online and offline identities. Between the curated self of social media and the authentic self of private experience. Between the person you present and the person you are. On social media, you construct a version of yourself. Carefully chosen photos, carefully worded thoughts, carefully curated highlights. This is not who you are. It is who you wish to be. And the gap between the curated self and the real self is a liminal space that millions of people now inhabit full-time. This is the distinctive feature of digital liminality. It never ends. Traditional rites of passage had a clear beginning, middle, and end. Digital liminality is all middle. You are always transitioning, always optimizing, always becoming. But never arriving. The profile is never final. The brand is never complete. The self is perpetually in draft. And now artificial intelligence introduces an entirely new dimension. When you interact with an AI, you are in a liminal space between human and machine communication. The AI is not human, but it simulates humanity convincingly enough to create genuine emotional responses. You are neither talking to a person nor talking to a thing. You are on a new threshold that has no map. We have become a society of permanent liminals. Millions of people who never fully commit to a belief, an identity, a community, or a self. Not because they are shallow, but because the digital environment makes every commitment feel provisional. Every choice has an undo button. Every identity can be edited. Every relationship can be replaced. Virtual reality takes digital liminality to its logical extreme. When you enter VR, you are literally in a space between worlds. Your body is here. Your experience is there. The dissociation is not a bug. It is the defining feature. VR creates a liminal state so complete that the brain struggles to distinguish which self is real. And the answer is increasingly, neither. The attention economy exploits liminality by keeping you in a perpetual state of partial engagement. You are never fully present. Never fully absent. Each swipe, each notification, each algorithmic suggestion pulls you back to the threshold. The zone between wanting and having, between curiosity and satisfaction, is where platforms make their profit. Your liminal state is their business model. In this context, the most radical act is not to find the answer. It is to remain in the question. To tolerate the discomfort of not knowing. To refuse the digital imperative to optimize, curate, and resolve every ambiguity. To stand in the threshold without rushing to the other side. This is what it means to cultivate liminality. Not to seek answers, but to deepen the question. Not to resolve the tension, but to use it. The Renaissance emerged from people who lived in the space between medieval certainty and modern inquiry. The scientific revolution was born in the gap between faith and reason. Every transformation begins in the threshold.
Technology has made us permanently liminal, but it has also made us afraid of liminality. We fill the threshold with notifications, with content, with optimization. The antidote is not to reject technology but to reclaim the threshold within it. To create digital spaces that honor the in-between rather than annihilating it. The discomfort of liminality is not a problem to be solved. It is a state to be cultivated. In a culture obsessed with arrival, with having things figured out, the ability to remain in the threshold becomes a radical act of psychological resistance. The most creative periods in human history emerged from people who lived in the question rather than rushing to the answer. Next, the halo effect. Why we assume beautiful people are good, intelligent, and trustworthy. How a single positive trait bleeds into every judgment we make. From job interviews to criminal courts, the halo effect shapes the world in ways you have never noticed.
Archetypes unbound. The liminal space.